Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
10 cents, 10 years,
I don't know. That I don't know. That
why
I don't
not?
know. I don't know.
You take positions on everything else.
Frankly, I do take positions on everything else. It's a very complicated position.
Welcome back to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. You just heard Donald Trump making new comments on abortion. To talk more about this, let's bring in our political panel. Executive Director of the Independent Women's Forum, Sabrina Schaefer. Advisor to the Anti-Trump Our Principles PAC, Tim Miller, and Donald Trump supporter David Wohl. David, let me start with you. So, Mr. Trump taking a new position, as far as I can discern, saying that women who get abortions should be punished. In the past, even very, very strong anti-abortion politicians like, for instance, Mike Huckabee, have said women should not be punished. This seems to be a new position for a Republican frontrunner.
Well, Jake, abortion's been legal for 43 years. That's not going to change anytime soon. Donald Trump actually has made it clear for a long time, from what I've heard and watched, that he is pro-life with exceptions such as for rape and incest. This was kind of an off-the-cuff comment that I think he'll clarify, but let's get real here. He's got a huge lead. He's leading in states coming up such as Maryland, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, California. People are looking for anything to grab onto to try to tear him down, and that's what's going to be the meme over the next week. You watch. That's what it's about. Nothing's going to change regarding abortion or his position. It was a hot interrogation by the MSNBC reporter.
Wow.
It was an off-the-cuff comment, and nothing's going to change.
Okay. Let me start with you, Sabrina. You're with the Independent Women's Forum. I believe that is an anti-abortion, pro-life group, correct?
No, we actually don't take an official position, right, because we focus entirely on economic issues. That being said, I mean, I think that anyone in the pro-life movement, and I know many of those women and men, would find this kind of comment repulsive.
Now explain why, because Donald Trump Jr. wrote in a tweet to me not long ago, like, shouldn't things that are against the law, shouldn't there be punishment and consequences?
Well, first of all, abortion is not against the law.
But this whole thing is a hypothetical if it were made against the law, which Donald Trump and all three Republicans support.
Look, I think the reason that conservatives are really aghast by this, as are liberals, is the fact that nobody wants to see women who are already suffering, if they have gone through something like an abortion, be punished any further. The idea is to have, most Americans want some kind of reasonable restrictions and reasonable freedoms, and this sort of runs against both parties' views on abortion. I think it also is, yet again, another distraction from the real policies that most Americans want to talk about.
Tim, you're with an anti...
Here are the two things that matter with this. Number one, Donald Trump's not really pro-life. He's been pro-choice his entire life. He was for partial birth abortion up until he started running for president. And so what he's saying, what happened here with Chris Matthews is, this is what he thinks pro-life people want to hear. He knows he's struggling with pro-life voters in Wisconsin, a very pro-life state. So this comes up in his head. He says, look, what do I have to say to sound pro-life? It's all part of the phoniness with Donald Trump. And what ended up happening is what always happens with Donald Trump. He can't help himself but demean women, and that's why when David mentions his poll numbers, if you look at his poll numbers with women, they're disastrous. He has an unfavorable rating of almost 3/4 of the women in Wisconsin don't like him.
David, do you think, I understand that you're going to talk about poll numbers and how Mr. Trump is leading generally, but let me ask you, do you think that this is a well thought out policy position, or do you think that Mr. Trump was kind of caught off guard and just answered, as Tim just said, what he thought pro-lifers would want to hear?
No, I mean, he's been pro-life for, I think, in the neighborhood of 15 years. And to say that he can't be pro-life now, Barack Obama, up till very recently, was against gay marriage. Now he's for gay marriage, but no one holds his feet to the fire on that. He is pro-life with exceptions. He made an off-the-cuff comment, and people are grabbing onto it because the reality is he's up by 300 delegates. He's got many favorable states ahead, and they're trying to find something to change that. So I don't think at all that's going to change anything. He is a very honest guy. He does speak from his heart from time to time, and of course that's what voters love about him. He's not pre-programmed. He's not scripted, and sometimes he says things that people are surprised at, and this is a great example right here.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Well, the reality is, if we actually want to talk about what's going to attract women voters, it's a broad economic policy that's going to give women ownership and control over the important things in their lives, their health care choices, their education choices, whether they're going to have jobs to be able to move up the economic ladder, whether they're going to be able to balance work and home because our burdensome regulations driving up the cost of food and housing and everyday household goods. These are the issues that women care about, and unfortunately it seems with Trump, every single day there is another distraction that's taking the conversation away on both the left and the right from a real substantive one that voters can grab onto.
Tim?
Yeah, look, the thing that stood out to me is David says Donald Trump's an honest person. I mean, that's the biggest con of his entire campaign. He doesn't tell it like it is. He tells people what they want to hear. He lies. Politico did an analysis of his stump speech. He lied every 5 minutes. If you just look at the recent examples of lying about Corey Lewandowski not touching Michelle Fields when video showed that it did, lying about making up the fact that ISIS was targeting him at his events, which they weren't, saying that he was never asked about being pro-choice when Tim Russer did ask about being pro-choice. I mean, I could go on the list of all of his lies. Donald Trump is a serial liar, and this is just another example.
All right, Sabrina Schaefer, Tim Miller, David Wohl, thank you all so much. A political gamble is playing out on Capitol Hill with Senate seats on the line. Some lawmakers insist the president's Supreme Court pick will not take the bench.
The fact is, we're not going to hold hearings, and we're not going to confirm this justice.
But never say never, an influential Democrat pushing for votes as early as this spring will join me next to explain why some Republicans might eventually get on board.